So you ask yourself the question, how do you know if you are where you're supposed to be? If this thing is the thing you're supposed to do, especially if you've stepped into something new recently. If you've ever stepped into something new, it's exciting in the beginning, right? Because you're like, oh my gosh, I'm like taking this leap of faith and I'm just like putting away my fear and I'm jumping in. But what happens when you're here now? You're in the new thing. And that feeling of doubt or unworthiness starts to creep in. Some people call it a feeling of imposter syndrome. And while I agree with that term, I feel like as believers, we have a different perspective on this. And so I want to offer that perspective. I'm on my way now. I'm nobody's actress, but I shot a commercial and I'm still trying to figure out how this happened. Yet, as excited as I was when I got that booking, I was so nervous because I don't know how to be an actress. And also, am I really supposed to be here? So I was asking God, where should I shoot this part of this video? And I thought I was going one place when I left the house today. And he dropped in my spirit, Turtle Creek. So I said, okay, let's go to Turtle Creek. And that's where we are right now. My life's journey has actually been quite interesting. Growing up, I was a military brat, born an American, but had never lived in America until I was actually 13 years old, which gave me a very unique worldview. But at the same time, I felt very limited in my scope of who I could be in that world. In my last semester of grad school, I was 25 years old and feeling very much so like I was hitting my first midlife crisis because I was trying to figure out whether or not I was supposed to go do what I had studied to do versus take this leap of faith to actually create content for a living. Something that I never thought would actually be a career, let alone something that I'd be doing 10 years later. It was crazy because in 2016, so many things happened. I became a full-time content creator and influencer. I graduated from my master's program. I met my now husband, and I signed to my first influencer agency. And before I forget, I starred in a commercial, my first commercial ever, with zero experience. And honestly, when I signed on to do it, I had no clue what I was walking into.
Designer when we see it.
Like the designer smile. It's bolder, brighter, and our blogs are buzzing about it. It's the new must-have look.
The designer smile by Colgate. New Optic White high-impact white toothpaste with a professionally recommended whitening ingredient for 4 shades visibly whiter teeth.
And a buzzworthy smile. Get your designer smile from new Colgate Optic White high-impact white.
And almost a decade later, I find myself in a very similar season. In fall of 2024, I began a new journey as a homeschool mom. I'm nurturing a new season of my family being 7 members strong. And if you're wondering right now, Jade, you have 4 children. How are you calculating 7? Well, I actually have 5 children. I have an oldest daughter, a stepdaughter, who lives with her mom in New York. Not only that, but a similar situation is happening career-wise for me right now, which is in fall of 2024, I left my influencer agency and I don't see myself going back to any agency at this point. And I starred in another commercial, which hasn't happened since almost a decade ago. And again, I feel this same feeling of anxiety and uncertainty anchored in faith that I did in 2016. There are seasons of harvest, there are seasons of rest, and there are seasons of transition. And if you are in a season of transition, this series is definitely for you because Challenged in the Right Direction is all about showing up and letting God do the rest.
I'm Jade. Hi, Jade. I'm Raina. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
It had been a really rough few weeks. I had been hitting some walls in my business as a content creator, and I finally got to this place where I had to make some big girl decisions. When I look at my experience and career as a content creator, so much of it has been out of my control. Over the years, I have had people support me and my platform through various ways, whether it was helping me build things on the back end or pitch me for different brand partnerships or negotiate my contracts and or build me production sets, like all the things. Yet one thing was always very evident to me, and that was that there was something bigger making moves here and with my life and what I was doing on the internet. What if the feeling of imposter is actually your flesh trying to hold you back? What if the imposter is actually the spirit of insecurity that's trying to keep you small and out of alignment of who God is calling you to be and what He's calling you to do? I don't know about you, but my natural inkling all of my life has been to lean into pride in order to feel more confident about myself in a moment. If I'm feeling scared, if I'm feeling insecure or unsure about something, I will try to boost myself up, tell myself nice things about myself, make up ideas or scenarios where I'm the best one in the room for the job or whatever it may look like. But I'm leaning into pride in order to make myself feel better in the moment. And while pride can feel like power in an instant or for a season, eventually it starts to reveal what it actually is, which is poison. Pride is the poison that slowly kills our faith in God, because He actually is the one that qualifies us and that brings us confidence, not what we create in our minds or who other people say we are. There was some force that was rooting for me to go in a very specific direction, even when I wasn't consciously choosing it.
And you're gonna go to the left. Left. The bedroom.
To the bedroom. Okay.
Left bedroom.
This one? No, not this one.
This one.
Oh.
You said left. I'm You're on the walking left. straight. You're on the left. Okay.
Oh, this is a cute color scheme. Okay.
I never dreamt of being a content creator like a lot of kids do today, okay? That was not me. This was not my chosen path. Yet, here I am.
In this one. That was really
Okay.
the last one. Really,
Yeah.
we're gonna, you see where we have this line from?
Uh-huh.
That's pretty stable. You're gonna address the camera to that point.
Okay.
You're still gonna say this back half, but we're gonna have like text overlay, like fade.
Okay.
in, like,
So
all that.
I'll basically stop here. Are y'all gonna stop me here, or I should say?
I remember hearing so much in college, especially, that you gotta act like you are where you wanna be, or you gotta act like you've been somewhere before. I think the sentiment is true, like act as if you are where you are supposed to be, but in the wrong context, you could be acting out in a way that you were never supposed to become. And you will become that thing. Whatever you say you are, you will be, right? So are we leaving it to ourselves to say who we are, or other people to say who we are, or are we allowing God to say who we are?
So they'll be singing happy birthday. I'm looking at them, engaging in them, singing to me,
Yeah, after
and
that.
then I'll break kind of from
Yeah,
this.
it was like thank you, and then.
Okay. Okay.
And
So it's like you're kind of stepping out of the moment and you're
Yeah.
like, oh,
Kind of breaking that wall.
now I'm
And-
talking to you.
and
Okay.
it's playful, like it's not like getting serious. You're having
Yeah.
the same kind of playful energy that you would have with them. You're
Okay.
talking to.
That's why I went to.
Health and
Yeah,
aging brings
perfect.
You
You want me to do some? That's good there.
Okay. And then
We need power.
no cost in that. But
The other part I always questioned for a very long time was, why me? Because clearly what I do is very common, right? And how I do it isn't that uncommon. These days, I mean, everybody has a podcast, a YouTube channel, and thinks that their Get Ready With Me video is going to change their lives. That's going to be the one. That's the video.
1, action.
Happy birthday to you. You know, ladies. Oh, I'm sorry.
3, 2, 1, action.
Happy birthday to you. You know, ladies, they say age ain't nothing but a number. But when it comes to our health, we need to make sure that that number isn't catching up with us.
And action.
That's why I signed up for the health and brain, no, health and aging.
That's why I went to.
Oh, that's why I went to.
Action.
That's why I went to health and aging study, no, brain. Tell me.
Yeah, to healthandagingbrainstudy.org and signed up for the Brain Health Research Study.
Brain health research study.
Action. One.
Yes, no cost.
If God has called you to a place, called you to a thing, called you to a relationship, called you to a person, then where is there room for this feeling of insecurity or imposter syndrome? That actually shouldn't exist for us as children of God. As daughters of the Most High, we should be able to recognize that our confidence and who we are comes from the Lord, and nothing physically can change that. No spiritual thing, nothing can change that. Nothing can change who God says we are. And if we don't remember to think about that before we allow the world to creep in to make us think different things, to let pride, to let ourselves, our own ego determine who we are, then that's when things start to get shaky. Especially when you're in a new thing, in a transition period or trying something different. If you start looking around at other people and how they do it, and then looking at how you're doing it and saying, well, I'm not as good as them, or I need to be this way or that way or whatever, it's like you're forgetting something. You're forgetting that you shouldn't be pulling your confidence from your surroundings or what you can see. You have to pull your confidence from what God says. Now, what does God say about you? He has a lot to say about you. One of the things that I do in my feelings of uncertainty, or in those moments where I'm like, wait a second, what am I doing in my life right now? Like, I have these moments where I question everything. I felt led to start making a list, a what is true list about my life and about the situation that I'm worried about or whatever. So I will write down physically what is happening, like what bills need to be paid, who do I need to call, what do I need to talk about with them, who do I need to amend things with, who do I need to forgive, what else is on my mind that's like just like driving me up the wall. Is it stuff with the kids? Is it stuff with my husband? Whatever it is, I write it down. And then I write down what God says. What is true? What is true about the situation? And very practically, I say, if I'm having an argument with my husband or we aren't seeing eye to eye, I say, what is true about my marriage? It's a good thing. God made my husband and me with each other in mind. That's something that is so much more powerful than any argument or impasse that we may come across. So I start taking and even simpler, bills that pile up and having more babies and things of that nature. Like, am I going to be able to provide for these kids? Like, am I going to be able to pay my mortgage? Am I going to be able to do all these things? And God says that he will provide for the things that he calls us to, that he will never forsake us, that he won't send us somewhere without there being what we need there waiting on us. And he promises us life to the full, an abundant life. And abundance is not just talking about physical things. It's talking about spiritual things. Abundance in life, abundance in joy, abundance in generosity, abundance in community, abundance in love. He promises those things. So if we fix our eyes on what Christ tells us and who he is and how he lived, then we will see Christ had a lot of intimate relationships. Not a ton, but he had at least 12. And then even more intimate with a few, 3-ish, right? So we have to look at that and say, okay, if we are mimicking our lives and our characters after Christ, then that means that it will come with things like intimate relationship and community and food when we're hungry and clothes when we are naked. Like, it will come with all those things, but we just have to be patient and we have to be comfortable with the unknowing of how God is going to do all those things. Like I said, challenged in the right direction is all about showing up and letting God do the rest. So how are you showing up in whatever situation that you're dealing with? Some of us get stuck and we get so worried and stressed out that we don't make a decision. So we continue on with life, but we actually aren't making a decision about what we're going to do next. And maybe you're waiting on the Lord to give you direction, but that doesn't mean that you stop. It means that you go back to what he told you first, which is love God with all your heart and love others. So what can you do in your waiting that does those two things on top of everything else? And let God do what he can only do.
And it's so easy to sign up. We all still want to be running the world when we're, what is it? I don't know.
Blind.
Yes, it's no cost, sorry.
Blind.
Yes, no cost, and it's so easy to sign up. We all still want to be running the world, heels and all, even when we hit 90.
Seasons of transition are very difficult and you can feel very blinded, but they are also a great training ground for how we should be walking all the time, blindly to the physical, with eyes focused on Christ, walking by faith, knowing that he is guiding us on the narrow path and that it will and is leading us to life. In this series, I'm going to be really diving into what that tension feels like, what being challenged in the right direction is all about, and how to navigate it. And I'm sharing it through my own personal lens of what it's felt like for me to transition from being an influencer to being a mom, being a wife, and also navigating just life and all of its transitions as a woman, because there's a lot of reasons and things that will have us shifting our perspective, and God is calling us to prepare ourselves, prepare our hearts, because life is not stable. Life is not stable, but we have a stable God. And so if we can use the seasons of transition, the seasons of feeling unsettled as opportunity to really hunker down on our faith and remember that he is the thing we can hold on to. He is our solid rock, our firm foundation. Then everything else will build on top of that. So being challenged in the right direction is all about having 10 toes down on your firm foundation and branching off of that. And what does that look like? What kind of fruit does that bear? Because now you're planted and you're starting to sprout. And that process is a beautiful one.